camera looks crooked. It looks crooked. Hold on a second. Let me see. Is that on? I don't know if it's straight. Let me see. Let me get in the middle of the lane and find out. It's still a little off. 1 second. Okay, I think that's better. All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. All right, so today I want to talk about separation, preparing for separation. Prepare for separation. I'm a Star Trek geek, so it's like, prepare the saucer for separation. Anyway, so, separation of what? Or from what? Separation from your friends, your family, the people that you know, the people that you are tied to in some way or another. You're tied to them. Prepare for separation, but also prepare for oh my God. It just hit me. I was like, okay, yeah, that too. Prepare for a reuniting, if you will, of those who have harmed you. So a lot of things can happen, and I'm talking in regards to when we pass. It's important to prepare yourself for separation because it's going to happen. It's not going to happen because you're bad, or I should say, let me say this. It's not going to happen because of punishing you. It's not a punishment. None of it is a punishment, really. It's a separation of love. That's what it is. There's many levels of love. There's many layers of love. And that means that there are many layers for souls to dwell in. And so there are souls who exist on a certain plane within the spirit world, meaning the dimensions. So we still currently, well, I shouldn't say that because there could be more that has been created. But not too long ago, there were like 36 dimensions. So within, like I've said before, within each dimension are thousands of layers, meaning there are thousands of levels of love within each dimension, within each barrier. And so there is a possibility that you and maybe your parent, mother or father, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, aunt, they all dwell, or they all have various levels of love dwelling within their soul. And so when they pass, they are automatically going to be taken to that place where their heart, where their soul dictates that they go, based on the love that's within their soul. And so there's a separation that's going to take place. And if you're not aware of this, and when I say preparing is just being aware. That's it. To understand what's going on. Not to be afraid. There's no reason to be afraid, because with every separation can a reunification happen. With every single separation, a reunification can happen. It's the same thing with love. With every single act of love that we have separated ourselves from, we are able to reunify with that love. So just like Adam and Eve, when they fell because they chose unloving actions rather than loving actions, they have reunited with that love that they once had. And not only did they reunite with the perfection that they were, the perfect love that was within their soul, they surpassed that and became divine, or I should say celestial beings, which are divine beings, or they have an aspect of divine within them. They're not the divine, because the divine is the creator. And so they have accepted the creator's love. And so that's what makes them divine, because they have accepted God's divine love. We don't have divine love. We can share our love with them, but we don't have divine love to give. In this current state, we don't have any divine love to give. we don't even have regular man's love to give, which is the soul's perfect state. But yeah, this separation it's really important because you never know when you're going to pass. You know, you just don't. Like my mother kind of had an idea as to when she was going to pass, but that's a whole different story. But generally, people don't know when they're going to kick the bucket. And, you know, we live life every day, you know, thinking we're going to see, you know, our loved ones, you know, the next day. And sometimes people don't wake up. You know, sometimes grandma doesn't wake up. Grandpa doesn't wake up. Mom or dad doesn't wake up. Sometimes your brother or sister, your aunt, your uncle, your cousins, they don't wake up. You know, and sometimes they wake up and they have an accident and then they're no longer here. And that separation happens. Now, that separation is different. The separation from, so let's say that I died. Right now, I had an accident on the freeway and I died. I would be separated from everyone who is physical. I would be able to still see them if I hung around here. If I hung around Earth, I would be able to see every last one of you. I would be able to see those who I've never met physically. So those who I've chatted with online, I can actually be in their presence. But I wouldn't be able to interact with them unless they were a medium. But for the most part, I wouldn't be able to interact with them. So, you know, that's a different separation than the separation that I'm talking about. The separation that I'm talking about is, let's say, you know, it came time. I mean, we're all going to expire at some point. Our soul cannot sustain this physical body for too long. So it's going to expire at some point. And our whole family, they're going to expire as well. And so we'll all be in the spirit world, but we'll be in different locations, possibly depending on the level of love that we have within our soul. And this is something you should prepare yourself for, because it's going to be a traumatic experience, but it doesn't have to be a traumatic experience. It doesn't have to be a traumatic experience at all, because you will understand what's happening and why it's happening. Does that make sense? I know it makes sense. Some of you may not want to accept it, but you'll figure that out when you get there. And if you don't believe me, like I said, you'll understand when you get there, and then you'll think back on what I said, and then you'll have some information that you didn't have, or you wouldn't have had otherwise. So, yeah. So I've already began the process of accepting and knowing what that feels like, because I'm not in close contact with my family. So I've learned how to live life without the people who have that label of family. So cousins, uncles, aunts, brothers, sister, like I don't really talk to them that much, so I'm already experiencing what it would be like not to have them. However, I currently have access to them, but I choose not to, not because I hate them, not because I don't like them, certainly not because I don't love them, because I love all of them. Like, I really wish I could have a relationship with them. I don't have hate for them, but I do understand the unloving things that are projected at me, and so I have to love myself enough not to put myself in that situation, not to put myself in that type of environment where I am experiencing hate or I am experiencing pain. I have to do that for myself, and that's why I have chosen to separate myself. But this is the same process that the Creator does with His children. I'm just doing it on my own. So the Creator has set up laws to where you will be, it's like the soul will automatically be drawn to the spirit location that best represents the level of love within the soul. So He separates people. So those who have harmed you and you don't have hate towards them, like in return, like they may hate you, but if you don't hate them in return, your soul is going to dictate that you go somewhere else or go to a place, and their soul is going to dictate that they go to a different place. And this is a separation. And they won't have access to you. However, you will have access to them. And the reason why you'll have access to them is because you have more love within your soul, which grants you more freedom to roam about in the spirit world, if that makes any sense. That's what love really grants you, is freedom. That's what love grants you in the spirit world. It can grant you that here, but the rules are a bit different here. They're a little bit different to understand. For some reason, they're a little bit, they're more difficult to understand here. And I'm coming to find that out. Not for myself, but I see it in other people. Like, it's hard for them to understand the rules of engagement here on Earth. But I can say there was a time when I didn't understand it myself. I need to turn some air on in here. It's getting hot in here. It's kind of, yeah. I didn't understand it for myself. And this is important because as I started to learn more about the spirit world and the rules, because the rules are more black and white in the spirit world. They're a little, not murky. They're kind of grayed, but they're not grayed. The rules, the laws are in effect. The rules are in place, but there's also God's grace. God's grace kind of trumps some things. For instance, like I mentioned before, we can have an extremely dark soul. We can be a murderer. We can be a rapist, a child molester. We can be all of these things and still have and still experience certain things that are joyful. For instance, the child molester who preys on children can go out in a beautiful garden and enjoy nature. And that's God's creation, and that's part of God's grace. But once we leave this place, God's grace isn't there anymore. And you're just left with the laws and the rules that are in effect. And so you feel the sting of what truly is. And I mean, I think that's loving of any parent, you know, not to be so strict in the beginning. You know, when we're a child, you know, we know when a baby or an infant or, you know, a toddler grabs something that, you know, they're not fully aware of what they are doing. And so whatever we try to do in terms of correction, it shouldn't be so harsh. It should be we should be very lenient, I should say. We should be more loving and accepting of their current state, their current lack of awareness. And so, you know, being that this is our first incarnation, and we've never had consciousness before this, and this is where the New Age people will need to come to understand the truth of what really is, because you'll better understand yourself, you'll better understand the laws and how the universe operates if you know that this is your first incarnation. Because if you have this idea in your mind where you'll come back over and over and over and over and over again, you can't see the truth of what I'm talking about, and you can't see the truth of the universe, which is what I'm sharing. So this is why it's important to just accept what is and not accept what you want it to be. Because when you accept what you want things to be, you are accepting something from a flawed soul, and you are a flawed soul. And a flawed soul has a flawed consciousness, and a flawed consciousness is going to come up with things that aren't real because they don't have the truth within them as verification. They don't have the truth within them to show them or to invalidate the untruths, if that makes any sense. Anyway, back to what I was saying. You know, it's like I was saying, the God's love and compassion and understanding is beyond anything we can ever imagine. And that's why we have this grace. Like, who allows us to do whatever we want to do for as long as we're here on the earth? Because this is the first physical experience. I mean, and it's brilliant. I mean, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Like, it just seems brilliant how you allow a soul who cannot die. That's amazing. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why I believe the Creator allows us to create such pain for ourselves, because we can't die. Like, there's nothing we can do to harm the soul. Like, we can damage the body. We can actually damage the physical body to a point where it can't even sustain life energy anymore. But then we have a spirit body, and that spirit body we can damage, but we can't kill it. Like, there's never anything that we can do to cause the spirit body to cease its existence. There's nothing we can do. we're always going to have that until we reach a state of soul union, and then we don't need the body anymore. But that's not us destroying it. That's simply us moving into a different level of existence. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, when you're able to know these things, when you're able to see the wholeness of it, there's really nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. And I've noticed that there's a great deal of fear that, well, let's put it this way. There's a lot of things regarding the universe that I did not know. And because I did not know it, when I learned the truth of it, it was easy for me to accept. Most people fear the unknown, but I didn't know much about the universe, but I learned a great deal about the universe. I learned a great deal about the laws, the rules, the different dimensions, how things are experienced in the different dimensions, and why they're experienced in different dimensions. And I think that's what has helped me understand life here on Earth, is because, and I think that's why many people gravitate towards the universe, because they don't have any emotional injuries regarding it at all. I mean, how could you? You haven't experienced it. We haven't experienced it. Does that make sense? So here on Earth, there's a lot of things that we have emotional injuries towards because we've experienced emotional injuries from it or regarding it. But we haven't experienced anything of the universe, really. I mean, from our perception of what the universe is and what Earth life is, we just haven't. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it was easy for me and it's easy for other people to accept, because they don't have any emotional injuries towards it. Now, those who are atheists, they create emotional injuries regarding the universe because of their dislike for the Creator, and so they associate anything outside of their physical existence with God. So if they don't believe in a God, then they don't believe in the universe. And if they believe in a universe, then they associate that with God, and so there's a tinge to it, and I think that's the emotional injury that they create for themselves regarding the universe, is because of the emotional injury that they have with God. So if and it's not God, it's what the parents have done, or those around them have done in terms of putting things on the Creator that the Creator never did. Like saying that, you know, they do it because they love, they punish their children because they love them, or, you know, it's in the Bible that they should be punished or harmed in a way, as a means, you know, to correct them. And as they absorb these untruths, they associate the Creator with things outside of what they know in terms of their physical reality. So there's many reasons, but anyway, this separation thing is going to happen, and like I said, I've prepared myself, or I am preparing myself. But like I had mentioned earlier, I still have access to my family members, and at any given time, I have the ability to drive up to their homes and say, "Hey, what's going on? You know, I haven't seen you in a while." And I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's just certain ones I can't do that with because they are in a more degraded state than other family members are. So I don't have issue with all of my family members. I don't even have issues. I don't think. Well, I have emotional injuries from from certain family members growing up, but as of right now, as an adult, I do not have any hatred for them. I don't have any ill will towards them. I just don't have that. I don't wish harm upon them at all. But those emotional injuries are like they're like time capsules. And so that whatever emotional injury that I experienced as a child was put in a capsule and lodged within my soul, and it was date and time stamped. And so it dwells within my soul in that moment. And so I have that. And so anytime anyone does anything to me that's associated with that emotional injury, it'll trigger me. But that's the only reason. But it's not that I have hatred now. Because I don't have any active hatred towards them. It's only when something is triggered that an emotional injury will come up, and then I'll respond. But I have to catch that response. Like I have to. That's the whole point of the law of attraction, is to expose these things that are within our soul so that we can catch it and release it. So anyway, understanding the separation is important. It's like I said, we will be separated from those that we know. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's only a bad thing when you're dependent upon those people. Or I should say, it only feels like it's a bad thing when we are dependent upon those people. When we are dependent upon individuals in our lives, we don't want them to leave. We want them to always be there. But what happens is, this is interesting because there is, this is very interesting. Growing up, there are certain people, and it's changed now, but in the past, there were certain races. It was more with the white race. The white race would put their parents in homes, like a senior living home, whereas other cultures or other races like Hispanics and blacks would not think about doing such a thing, and they felt it to be unloving to put their parent in a home. And now this is all part of law of attraction, so there's a lot of components that are mixed into why this would happen. But there is a sense of obligation with certain minority cultures, or I should say within the cultures of minorities. And for a while I couldn't figure this out, but I remember it being said to me that, white people are just heartless and they don't care about their parents, and that's why they just throw them in a foster home. Like, that's what I was taught growing up. But as I'm looking at it like, each individual is, and sometimes a home isn't a bad thing. It really depends on the type of person. Hold on, don't run the guy over. He's walking at snail's pace too, so I don't know what's up with that. Maybe he hasn't had his Java yet. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I was taught this, that, white people are heartless and cold, and they just throw their parents in a living home and they don't care about them, and the thing is, it's interesting because when you look at the history of black people, they had to stick together in order to make it. And so this is passed down from generation to generation to generation, where one is dependent upon the other, because in separation there is a sense of weakness. And if you look at slavery, a lot of the owners, the slave owners, would separate them so they didn't have any power, because when we stick together we have more power. And so they would separate them, and this is how they would tear them down individually, or keep them separate. But the blacks, the slaves, knew that they had to stick together no matter what. You stick together, and this is what happens today, is that they stick together, but to their own detriment. Because as they have family members within their family who are degraded in terms of their soul condition, and they're doing things that are not to their benefit or the benefit of others, like they put themselves at risk and they put their family members at risk, they won't let them go. They won't let them go. And they'll hang on to them, and they'll say things like, hey, we're family, we have to stick together. When someone's down, you have to help them up. But they don't understand that the energy that they're taking to help someone, or what they call helping, is actually bringing them down or holding them back. And they can't move forward. And if you'll know what I mean, and you don't have to be black to understand what I'm saying. Because there are times when you wanted to move forward in your life, but then someone came to you for help, and you turned your focus and attention and energy towards them, and you ended up sacrificing your joy, your happiness, your endeavors for that person. And this is what I'm saying. It's taught that we should stick together, but what we don't understand is that each individual is making their choice, and it's this choice that is creating the reality. And so when we go to help someone, we are then taking on their reality as our own. And so whatever pain they have created for themselves, we have now created for ourselves. And this goes back to what I said before in terms of the penalty that we incur when we interfere with God's laws, or corrective measures for that person, because their suffering is their corrective measure, but they just haven't realized it yet. And when we go and help someone, we interrupt that corrective measure, and because we did that, that was an unloving thing to do, because now we just prevented them from seeing the light, if you will. We blocked their light, and that's why we incur the penalty. That's why we incur the karma. But anyway, all these things that we do put our souls in different conditions of love. And then when we pass, what happens is we're taken to those places that are identical to our soul condition. And that's why we're going to be separated, because everyone has a different soul condition. There are certain people who want to love, and there are certain people who don't. There are certain people who want to hate a family member for molesting them, and there are people who don't want to hate that person for doing that to them. Does that make sense? Because you can have a family member who rapes or molests, certain children within the family, and some of them will hate their guts and others won't. And this is going to dictate the level of love, or this is going to dictate the level of love that can be held within your soul, which means this is going to be the level of love that's going to dictate where you go when you pass. And so that's the thing. And the people who are in the lower levels, they can't go above their level. But those who are in a higher level or in a better condition of love will be able to go down to where they are. And it depends on where they are, or I should say, you wanting to visit them will depend on where they are, how bad it really is. Because someone can be in a somewhat bad condition. You're like, okay, it's not so great here, but I want to spend time with you, maybe help you try to get out of this. Or you can visit, or they can be in a really bad, like a really dark place where there's like no light whatsoever, and there's just what we would call demons, where there's murderers and there's so much hatred and anger. Now, if they're in a place like that, you may not want to visit them, but you still have access to them. So it's no different than someone living in Beverly Hills, because that's, let's just say that's a level of love. Beverly Hills, you have access to everything. You don't want for anything. You can have anything you really want and ask for. And then you have someone who lives in the projects, and there's drug dealers hanging out and prostitution. It's like, do you really, when there's, there's violence, there's, fighting and arguing. Like, do you really want to be in that place when you know you have access to a better place? No. And that's how I feel in terms of my friends and family, or people who I have labeled my friends, and those who are labeled as my family. I had to ask myself, do I really want to be in their company? No, I don't. Look, I work in the hood, but I don't come out here to eat. I don't come out here to visit restaurants. No. Why? No. No. Because I have access to other places that are more pleasant. And so that's where I frequent. The places that are more comfortable for me. That's more in alignment with who I am as a person. I don't enjoy going to a restaurant in the hood, because there are people who are in the hood who will frequent that place, and I don't want to be there. I don't want to be with the gossip. I don't want to be with the arguing and the fussing and the fighting and talking down or talking lowly about other people. Like, I don't want to do that. That's not in me. I don't even want to be around it, which is why I don't frequent places in the hood. I do not do it. And it's interesting because anyway, I'll leave that one alone. Just be mindful of where you are, who you are, what you engage in, because if you can imagine being who you are, imagine this. Imagine being in a space where there's nothing around you. There's nothing to do other than interact with people who are exactly like you. Ooh, this fume's coming in my car. So, imagine that. Picture that. You're in a place, a box, a room, whatever you want to conjure up. You're just in this place, and you, these people, and you can't escape. And the only thing to do is to communicate with people who are just like you. This yellow truck is like acting cray-cray, and I think I need to get over here because you didn't see him before. He was driving that truck like he was driving a car. Just imagine yourself in a place and there's nobody to communicate with other than people who are just like you. So do you condemn? Do you gossip about people? Do you lie to people? Do you take advantage of them? Think about all these things, because that's exactly who you're going to be around when you pass. You know, if you're not the type of person to be trustworthy, you're not going to be around people who you can trust. This is why I have made it a point to change my life and be honest about things and tell people the truth and just live in truth, my truth. Like, acknowledge my pain, because the thing is, if you don't acknowledge the things that are within your soul, you're not going to have any clue as to why you have ended up where you've ended up. Because all the people who are hurt, all the people who are wounded, you're going to end up with them. So if you're depressed and sad, understand that you're going to be surrounded by these people. And how can you get out of that when all you see is sadness and depression? This is why it's so difficult for people in the spirit world to get out of the place that they're in, because they don't understand why they are where they are and how to why they can't understand why they are where they are, and they can't understand how to get out of it. They just can't. And the thing is, like, if I were to die, like I said, if I were to die right now, I would know why I am where I am. I would know exactly why I am where I am. And the thing is, we have the ability to know where we are right now on a soul level, because those are the people we interact with. The liars. You know those friends you have that are dishonest and deceitful? Who are malicious? Who are opportunists? Those people who are your friends are reflections of you. You just don't see it. You don't see it at all. You don't want to see it. I don't know of any people like that. Like, well, let me change that. I know of people like that, but I don't communicate with them anymore. And I've said before, I didn't purposely stop talking to these people. It just kind of happened. Like, I wasn't like angry and said, I'm not going to talk to these people anymore. They're just assholes. I've never said that. I just focused on different things. Like, my attention went to different things. So, you know, when you change yourself and when you improve yourself, you are automatically going to be separated from these people who were once, or who were like you, or I should say, who you were like. You were going to be separated from the people that you were once like. There's people who have been trying to like hang out for a while. I mean, it's been years and it hasn't happened. It has not happened. And it's not like, we're purposely, well, on my end, I'm not purposely avoiding it, but it just hasn't happened. It hasn't manifested. And I have to ask myself, well, why is that? Well, I know why that is. That's the great thing about truth and owning who you are and what you are, is you understand exactly why things are happening. So I understand why I would be in a certain location. I know why I would be in a dark location if I end up there. I know why I would end up in a brighter location, and I also would understand why I can't access higher locations. See, the thing is, I understand currently, and those of you, if you've been listening, you're also aware that there are higher locations within the dimensional world, or dimensional spaces. There are more. And so wherever you are, you now know that there's always more. And as you move higher or you communicate with celestial beings and they tell you which dimension you're in, and they're like, oh, you're in the first dimension, or you're in the third dimension. Because you don't know, most people don't know the how things work in terms of dimensional spaces and how it shifts and changes while you're in it. Because sometimes it's very gradual, because as you release the unloving things within your soul and you allow a little love in your soul, your conditions gradually change. And it's not like it's stark. It's only stark if stark things happen within your soul. Like if there's a huge contrast, a huge shift, a huge change, then it will change greatly and dramatically. But if it's just gradual, it's going to be difficult for you to realize that. Did I have enough breakfast? Yeah, I think I have enough. I gotta be careful with this oatmeal stuff. So, you know, you know what? I know what I'll do. I'm going to... Oh, wait, do I even have money on me? Do I have cash on me? I think I do. Yes. 1 second. Let me,
Camera.
Alright, sorry, I had to order breakfast. I didn't want to have oatmeal today. So it's the sweetened kind. I don't want that much sugar today. So, you want to act cray cray? I don't know what's wrong with you. You don't want to drive, right? Well, that's fine. So, what was I saying? Let me think. That Intenso coffee is strong on my stomach. I know that. I think I might have to downgrade to Stormio. Or Gionio. What was I saying? Oh, the transitions. All this stuff about the spirit world, it's, you know... I personally believe it's extremely important, because it's a place where we're all going to go. We are all going to end up in the spirit world. A lot of our family members are already there. They are already there. And, you know, perhaps they didn't know about... I know my mom did not know. My mother didn't know anything about what was going on in the spirit world. The only thing she knew was from her near-death experience when when she, was experiencing what she was experiencing, and then, I remember her telling me that, her mom was there and there were some other people there. And I remember her saying this, and this was weird. She said, I remember seeing my mom. I saw some old friends, and she said there were some other people there who I didn't know. And to me, that didn't make any sense. I'm like, well, why would they greet you? I mean, why would they greet you if they didn't know you? I remember her saying there were like some people there I didn't know who they were. And now I understand who those people were. They were celestial beings who greet you at the transition. At that transition from the physical into the non-physical, you have these celestial beings who greet you because they understand the shock, they understand the trauma, and they're there to help you understand exactly what's going on. Like even after we leave this place, after what we call death, after that happens, God's still giving us grace. Like, the Creator is still like saying, hey, I know what you're experiencing is unsettling, and because the people on earth did not teach you about this, I'm going to send someone to help you understand exactly what's going on. Like, when you look at the universe, when you look at the things that happen, it's, I mean, I don't know, you can only, I personally can only be thankful for everything that takes place, because I now understand that there's love in everything. There's love in every single thing. Every single painful experience is a lesson, that we have, or every single law of attraction event that brings us pain is also carrying a lesson. But that lesson is there for us to get, so we never have to experience that pain again. Ever. That's the loving universe, created by a loving creator, using its loving laws. I mean, everything is love, if you look at it from that perspective. But if you look at it from man's perspective, you're screwed. Like, you are screwed. I can't be screwed anymore because I already know it. That's the benefit of it, is I know exactly what's taking place and why it's taking place. And so I can't have fear because of it. And that is key, because fear keeps you in this perpetual state of suffering. And that's why my suffering has mellowed out. I don't suffer. I mean, my life has changed. I mean, I'm not in the same position that I was when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when I was a young adult. I was spinning out of control, had no idea. Now, when I say spinning out of control, I don't mean like I was out there, gang banging or doing drugs or anything like that, because I never got into that. But honestly, I was spinning out of control in terms of understanding what the hell was going on and trying to figure out life, and now I understand why life happens. Like, the things that happen in my life, I understand why they're happening. So I have a better understanding as to what life is and what is meant to be experienced, and why we're experiencing something other than what we were created to experience. Like, I understand all of that. And so there isn't any pain, there isn't any anger, there isn't any suffering because of it. I just simply understand. Now, the things that are lodged within my soul from when I was growing up, those things I have to get out, because those things are the things that bring me the law of attraction events that I don't want to happen. But it's up to me to find out. And a lot of the things I already know, but it's a fear. There's a fear of experiencing the pain of it. But I have to get over that. Like, I really have to sit myself down and say, Zach, get your shit together and release this stuff, because you already know why it's happening. And I know why it's happening. So, I was, for a while I was fearful in terms of where I was going to end up when I was first learning about this stuff. Like, where am I going to end up? Where am I going to end up? And, am I going to end up in a dark place? I have a lot of pain and, sadness in my soul. I have a lot of anger. But the thing is, as I start to understand more, the anger subsides, because I understand why things are happening. And so that automatically puts my soul in a better condition. But then I was thinking about all the stuff that I know, because I've been blowing up Instagram like crazy, and it's just it just sharing the understanding that I have thus far. And I was like, son of a bitch. I was like, you know some shit, Bradley. Like, you know some shit about some shit, And I was like, why are you so hard on yourself? Like, and I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, there's no need. There's no need to punish myself for anything, really. It didn't make any sense. Using the things that I know, it didn't make any sense to hold myself down, or to feel less than, or to feel like I'm not capable, or I don't know enough. Because when I look at the world and the people that I know and the people who I don't know, I'm in a much better place. Because I have an understanding that disallows the anger and the hatred. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. There's I don't know how to fully explain that. And it doesn't really matter, because if you don't have the wherewithal to understand it, then you're not going to understand it. I can't force anybody to understand it. I can't make someone understand something. But I mean, it is what it is. But it's amazing. It is amazing to know this, because once you know that you're not angry like the next person, or you're not in a state of sadness like the next person, or you're not enraged like the next person, or you don't have expectations like the next person, or you don't try to control someone like the next person. When you look at all of these things and you understand that you're not really like the others, then you're able to look at the truth of what is. And that's what I wasn't doing, is I wasn't looking at the truth of who I am in this moment. I am not the person that I used to be. And I'm certainly not the person that I'm sitting next to. Does that make sense? So yeah, you can be, and this is how spirits are able to get to the sixth dimension with all their emotional baggage that they have. Like, they may not have an anger or hatred or rage or sadness that they are living in or expressing towards another person. They may not have that. And that allows them to get to the sixth dimension, but they can't get to the seventh because of the things that they haven't dealt with from their childhood when they were on Earth. And that's how they're able to get there. And I was thinking about that. I was like, well, I'm not angry. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not jealous of what anybody has. I'm not trying to tear someone down. I'm not doing any of these things, and these people aren't doing any of these things, and they're like in the sixth dimension, but they can't get past that. And the only reason why they can't get past that is because of the things that are within their soul from their childhood, from when they were on Earth. And those are the things that they have to release. But the people who are actively angry and actively enraged and actively just evil, spiteful, vengeful people, those are the people who are automatically just taken to the dark places within the first dimension, which is known as the hells. But as you release that, see, the thing is, when I was angry growing up, it's because I didn't understand why the things were happening to me. I didn't understand why they did happen. I didn't understand why someone would hurt me. I didn't understand that. And so I was angry because of it, because I would see other people who seemed to not experience that pain, not to experience that hurt or suffering. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't have the joy and happiness that my eyes were seeing other people experience. But what happened was I started to understand why those things took place. And as I understood why those things took place, I understood that they weren't injustices at all. It wasn't injustice that was being directed towards me. It was just simply me not understanding why things were happening, and that I was the cause, meaning the things within my soul were the cause. Sometimes it was just the things that are in the soul, and sometimes the pain is a response from the actions that we take based on the things that are within our soul. It all starts with our soul, but we can experience things for different reasons. One, emotional injuries that are transferred from our parents, or two, the unloving things that we engage in based on those emotional injuries that are within our soul that we do not know that are there. And so as I began to understand this, the anger subsided, because now I was no longer confused. And this is the power of understanding. Understanding is the opposite of confusion. And as you understand the laws, as you understand the universal laws, as you understand the rules, as you understand free will, as you understand the way the universe operates, as you understand what love is, that is key. Understanding what love is from the Creator's perspective is key. That is absolute key. Without that, you cannot figure this other stuff out. You won't want to. You will not want to, because you'll have this definition or understanding of love, which is really not the understanding of what true love is. So, but anyway, yeah, that's how I started. As I started to understand why things were happening, and as I understood, the anger just kind of subsided. There was no reason to be angry, because I understood. And now my job, my task is to simply release the things that are within my soul that were given to me, and the things that I created and put there myself. But now I'm less likely to respond in a negative way, because I understand why things are happening. There's no need to respond in a negative way, for me anyway. And you can get to that point. Any and everybody can get to this point. There are people who were in my position or situation, and they have surpassed. My guide, my guardians, my guardian and my guides have all been in a similar situation that I have in their life when they were here on earth. That's how they are the perfect guide for me. You know, your guides are assigned to you at conception. Actually, a little bit before conception, but at conception they're assigned to you. And do you know, I mean, when you look at the system, it would only make sense if they were assigned based on your parents' emotional injuries. Because there's no way they're going to know what's within what you're going to carry out, because there's nothing within you yet. But because the emotional injuries are transferred from our parents, they are aware of the potentials. They are aware of what your parents have gone through. They are aware of what your father has, your mother and your father have gone through. And so there are potentials. And the thing is, your guides change. Your guides change throughout your life, depending on the situation. Sometimes others who are more capable of handling a situation, meaning they've gone through a similar situation and they understand it on a soul level, they are more equipped to help and assist than perhaps the original guide that was set out for you. I know I have a different guide. Or different guides, or more guides than I started out with, because of the path that I'm on. The path that I'm on, well, I take that back, because, well, I would assume that I have, hold on. I would assume that I have a different guide, but, you know, when I think back on my childhood, I've always had a deep desire for truth. And there are certain things that I wanted to do that were totally out of man's view or perspective of what could be done. So I don't know, but I'm assuming at some point, because of this path that I'm on, in terms of truth and wanting to know things about the universe, I mean, I'm sure if that was something that, you know, my parents were interested in, then they would already know. But it was in me from the beginning. I really wanted to know what the truth is, and I really didn't care what it was, which is why, you know, I fell for certain things, but also why I couldn't fall for other things. So anyway, it gets kind of complicated, but this video is long enough. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great week. It is Monday. The weather looks like it's going to be kind of cool out here in Southern California. I'm happy about that. So yeah, chew on that for a little bit, maybe. If you have questions, ideas, if you have comments, share your story, then share the story. You can't learn anything if you don't share your experiences. Like, what do you think I'm doing here? Sharing my experiences. And some people are learning from it. That's just how it works. All right, everyone. Like I said, have a great Monday, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.